Bible that's really quite an exciting it's quite an exciting story, and it's about someone whose name was Paul, and he's one of the disciples, but he didn't meet Jesus because he didn't meet Jesus while he was alive on the earth. He met him after he'd come back from the dead. And if you want to read all about him, you have to look in Acts in the Bible. Start at Acts chapter 8, and then you can hear all his exciting things that happened to him. But we're going to listen to quite an exciting thing that happened to him now. Now Paul, oh okay, come on Reuben, great. Paul had been arrested. Just like Jesus, people had come and told lies about him. And the people in Israel wanted to kill Paul. And so Paul appealed to the boss of all the whole area, all the known world virtually, who was called Caesar. He said, I want to go to Caesar for Caesar to judge whether I'm guilty or not, whether I should be killed or not. So they said, okay, you can go to see Caesar. But Caesar lived in Italy, which was a very long way away from where they were. In fact, I Googled it, and it's 1,500 miles away. That's a pretty long way, isn't it? And they didn't have any planes in those days, so they couldn't get on a plane to fly there. And the best way was to go by ship. So they found a ship, and Paul wasn't allowed to go on his own. He had soldiers with him and some other prisoners with him to make sure that he couldn't escape. Okay, so I was thinking we might like to kind of imagine that we're someone in this story. You could do it as well, grown-ups. You could imagine that you might be a sailor on the ship, or you might be a soldier on the ship. Would you like to be a soldier or a sailor? You might be a prisoner. You'd like to be a sailor, okay? You want to be a soldier, okay? Well, we're going to read the story, and as you're listening, think to yourself, wow, that's what was happening to the soldiers. That's what was happening to the sailors. Okay, me? You're going to be a soldier or a sailor? I'm not sure. Let's read. Okay, this is from Acts chapter 27. Now, they're on their way. They found a ship, but it's not really the right time of year to be sailing in a ship. They haven't got any engine. They've only got sails. But it's a big ship. Now, when a gentle south wind began to blow, they thought they had obtained what they wanted, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force, named the northeaster, swept down from the island. The ship was caught in the storm and couldn't head into the winds, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed in the lee of a small island called Corda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. The lifeboat was behind the ship, being towed along, and they thought, no, we'll have to bring it onto the ship to keep it safe. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither the sun nor the stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. They didn't have sat-nav. They needed to be able to see the stars to know where they were going. After the men had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then we would have been spared all this that's going on. But now I urge you to keep up your courage. because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of the Lord stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you all the lives of the people who are sailing with you. So keep up your courage." No, this is Paul saying, "So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground somewhere." So here's a little clue. God was listening to Paul when he prayed. And what do you think Paul prayed? He didn't just pray, "Lord, save me." Evidently, he was praying, "Lord, save all of us," because it says God's graciously given, he's heard your prayer, and none of you are going to die. So, if you were a sailor, who said they wanted to be a sailor? If you were a sailor, you were working very hard on the ship, but even you began to feel, it's no good, we're not going to make it, the ship is going to sink. And sure enough, on the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea, when about midnight the sailors sensed we were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we'd be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, sailors. Who were sailors? Listen to this. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchor from the bow. The sailors were being very bad, actually. They were pretending that they were going to let some anchor down, but actually they were going to take the lifeboat and go off on their own. Whoa. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it fall away. So the sailors can't escape on their own. They've got to stay with everybody else. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. "For the last 14 days, he said, you've been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread, gave thanks to God in front of them all, and then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged, and they all took some food themselves. Altogether, you'll never guess how many people were on the boat.
Was it 13,000?
Oh, no, it wasn't 13,000. Goodness me, that would have been a huge, huge ship. I thought you were going to think of a smaller number.
Oh, I thought it was a big ship.
Good thinking, that's good thinking. He thought it was a huge ship. By those standards, I think it was quite a big ship in those days. I'm going to tell you how many. Oh, I wonder if any adults know. Oh, the adults are cheating because they're reading up there and they saw it says 276. You were going to say it. Good thinking. I didn't even know it was up there behind me. 276 people. That's about probably 5 times as many people as are here. I'm not very good at maths, but it's quite a lot more people than are here. So when daylight came, they didn't recognise the land, but they saw a bay with sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea, and at the same time, they untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow stuck fast and wouldn't move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. So the front of the boat was stuck, the back of the boat was broken to pieces. The soldiers, oh, more soldiers, the sailors hadn't been all that good, had they? And this is, yes, but listen what the soldiers wanted to do. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life, and he kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered that those who could swim, they had to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or pieces of the ship, and in this way everyone was to reach safety. So if you're on the ship, if you're on the boat, can you swim?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. Anyone who can swim?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So he said, those of you that can swim, jump off the boat first and swim to the shore that we can see. We can see the beach. Jump off and start swimming. It's very rough. If you can't swim, find a piece of wood or a broken piece of the boat, hang on to it, and the waves will wash you ashore. Yeah, so we'll be there. Once safely on shore, everyone got there? Once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper. Anyone know what a viper is?
Snake.
Well done you, yes. It's a snake, a nasty snake that bites and could kill people with poison. The snake came out of the wood and fastened itself on his hand, on Paul's hand. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, "This man must have been a murderer. He deserves to die." But Paul shook the snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. But after waiting for a long time, well done you two, well done. After waiting for a long time, the people saw he didn't swell up, he didn't die. Yeah, you're being the people as well. Okay, well done.
I'm being the snake.
Well, you're not in a good position then, because what happened to the snake? Shall I say it again?
He got killed.
The snake came up, fastened round Paul's wrist, hanging from his hand, but Paul held it over the fire and shook it, and it was killed. It was dead. Okay, so nothing bad happened to Paul. Okay, well done. So this is quite an adventure. Oh, there's a little bit more. The people started to say, these people, that Paul must be a god. Wasn't a god, was he? But God was with him. So, I'm going to leave it there. Okay. What do you think? What can we learn about God through this? Okay. We can learn from this that sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes the storm comes and it's much worse than we expected. I think when don't worry. When Claire was talking about the storm, and Jesus stood up and said, "Peace, be still," and the storm stopped. So we know that Jesus is more powerful than the storm. We do. I'm going to tell you a little story now that's just really, it's about me, rather than, this is a little adventure that happened to me, rather than something that happened to Paul. Are you ready to listen? Ava? Good girl. I'm going to see if I can see your face, I know your ears are working. Okay? Okay. This is a little story about something that happened to me. This happened probably before all of you, oh no, before most of you on this mat were born, but after most of you sitting on the seats were born. Because this happened in 2014, actually. You were around, yes, I know you were. Now, in the Bible, when we want to hear from God, really the best way to hear from God is from the Bible. So sometimes when we're reading the Bible, a verse kind of comes alive and we think, oh, that's for me. Sometimes when someone's preaching from the Bible, a word comes to us and we think, oh, that's God speaking to me. But sometimes when someone's praying for you, or we're praying for someone, we get a little picture in our mind and we think, oh, that's coming from God. That means something for me, or for someone else that I should give it to, or maybe for the whole church that I should give it to. Sometimes just a verse comes into your mind and you think, oh, the Holy Spirit's reminded me of that. So, George and I, in 2014, went to Africa. We went to South Africa, and when we were there, we were in a big meeting with lots of people praying, and the person who was leading the meeting said, it's time for you to pray for one another. And a lady came, an African lady that I didn't know, came out of the kitchen where she'd been getting the lunches ready, and she said, can I pray for you? And I said, oh, yes, of course. And she started to pray for me, and she said, I've got a picture here from God for you, and the picture is that a snake has come around your wrist. She was thinking, she saw a picture of a snake around my wrist, and she said, but you're going to shake it off into the fire, just like Paul did in this story. And I thought, I don't think I like this picture very much. And we've been taught, we know that when people get pictures from the Bible, they're usually encouraging pictures. And they never get a picture that goes against what God would say. But I thought, well, this lady seems to know Jesus. She's a lovely lady. So I'll just put that picture in the back of my mind. And we went home. And I didn't really think much about it at all for a while. But several months later, into 2014, I found that I had cancer. And when I heard that I had cancer, it's not a good thing to hear, and you think, well, maybe I'm going to die pretty soon then. And then my daughter said to me, Mum, don't you remember that picture that you had about shaking something off and into the fire? I believe that picture was from God, and it was God saying to you, you're not going to die right now because you're going to shake off the cancer that you were suffering from. And obviously I went through all the treatments, and here I am. 2014 that happened, and I'm still here. Yes. And I believe that was from God. And I've had quite a few adventures in that time since, because God is so good. And so now kiddies, oh, I shouldn't call you kiddies, young people. I've been trying to hear from God for you. So I just want the one with the sticker on, that one. Thank you. Oh, I bought a whole load of cards. And this is what I did. I thought, I'm going to see if I can pray for each of the children, and if I can hear from God what he might like to say to them. So this is what I did. I wrote all your names on the envelopes, even you too, because I found out your names during the week, and I've prayed for you too as well. So what I did was, I got the envelopes, put all the children's name on an envelope, and then I took one at a time, and I started to pray and say, Lord, what do you want to say to this person? So I got a post-it note like this, and I put it on the envelope without looking at the name, and I prayed, and I wrote what I thought God might be saying to you. Then I put it down and got the next one and prayed and put it down, till I had quite a little pile of envelopes, and I was thinking, now I've finished all those, this is the exciting bit, I'm going to turn the envelope over and see who it is. So I turned the envelopes over, and I had a look to see who it was for, and then I thought, oh, now I'll write that in the card. So I copied it into the card, and some of them I thought, that's not quite what I would have said if I knew who it was for. And then I thought, shall I swap them around? And then I thought, no, I mustn't do that. I'm going to believe that this is what God wants to say to that person. So in a minute, I'm going to put all these, I've got loads, and there's quite a few children who aren't here this week. It doesn't matter, I'll give it to them later. But I'm going to put these all over there on the table, and I'm going to ask you, well, you can go and look, see if you can find the one with your name on. And it might be my writing's a bit tricky. If you're too young, you'll have to, or you'll be all right, but if you're too young, you'll have to read it to your young sister or brother, okay? And then I was thinking, we believe, don't we, that Jesus is alive and he speaks to us. So I was thinking, I can't possibly write, and I might, no, I won't say that. I can't possibly write to all of you. But what I did was, about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a prayer room when we all went away together. And in the prayer room, we had a box with rolled up pieces of paper with a verse of scripture inside. And I'm a great one for waste not, want not. So I thought we could use these this morning. So I'm praying that when I send these boxes around and you take one of these out, you will find that it's a verse that speaks to you. You don't have to, but if you want to. And if you feel this doesn't really say much to me at the moment, keep it in your pocket or your purse and wait, because like the word that came to me, it didn't mean anything at the time, but it did later. But think about what's in the verse in case it's something that God is saying to you right this morning. If it isn't, it might be that God is saying to you, this is for someone else that you know. And if you think, oh, this is for someone else that I know, have the courage to give it to them and explain that you think that's what God is saying to them. Okay? So, if you look at your verse this morning and think, well, that really is for me, and it's quite exciting, please come and tell us, or tell someone around you, because that will be encouraging. But otherwise, as I say, keep it and see if later on it turns out that really was God speaking to me. God is alive. Jesus is here. He wants to talk to us. He wants us to hear from him. And he wants us to be able to hear from him and tell other people what he's saying. So it's a little kind of experiment for all of us this morning. I'm going to send, I've got one box for this side. If you just take one, pass it round, have a little look. Now kids, we're going to put the envelopes out there. See if you can find the one that has your name on it and see what Jesus might be saying to you. What do you think?